Plexxi is, we're a networking company. We build networks for public and private cloud environments. Really interesting and exciting time for us. Last week we won the New Hampshire High Tech Council's Product of the Year Award, and today we had a really big announcement around our Cloud Builder software suite. So it's a great time to be here in front of you. So I want to talk a little bit about, from a messaging standpoint, really it's about delivering simplicity, right, and from a networking perspective, and being better about how we do it. And go ahead and click that, please. Thank you. So, on the simplicity side, really most companies that deploy data center networks build them in multiple tiers. You have really expensive core boxes, then you have a really expensive spine leaf, and then you put a switch on the top of every rack and you build that out. From Plexxi's perspective, we actually build converged networking infrastructure. We do everything that you would typically do in that multi-tiered environment, we do it in a single tier. So it's a much lower CapEx conversation, right? Fewer switches that you need to buy, far fewer interconnect ports. Those interconnect ports are 10 gig, 40 gig, 100 gig, really expensive. So there's a lot of lower cost component to that, right? But it's really about being better from the perspective of integrating workflows with the applications and stores that are in that environment. So, we talk about having integration. In fact, in just a minute, I'm going to actually show you some screenshots on this. But integration with vCenter, right? Integration with OpenStack. So it's the understanding of the workloads, whether they're storage, whether they're compute, what the needs of those workloads are as they move out or about that environment. Being able to tune the network to support that. So, product-wise, we build the product with 3 components. There is Plexxi Control, the software. That's how we understand the fabric. It's how we understand how to forward that traffic. It's a controller environment. There's a hardware aspect of what we do. We actually have one of the switches in the back. We've got the cover off. We've got plexiglass over it. It's kind of cool to see. You don't get to actually see the guts of these things very often, and we can kind of talk you through what's really unique and different about that. And then finally, we have Plexxi Connect. Plexxi Connect is our platform that we do the integration with, right? It's an API platform. So when we talk about integrating with Hadoop or Cloudera for big data and analytics environments, or vCenter, VMware, and OpenStack, this is the platform that we're doing that in. Understanding the workload needs and tuning the network, the fabric, the capacity of that to meet the needs of the workload as they move around. It's incredibly unique. There's no other vendor that has that ability to do that. We do it optically. Again, if you come back afterwards and look at the back, it's really kind of cool. You can see how in fact, we do that. So, we talk about being for the cloud builder. What's really interesting here is in a single platform, the 3 components that I just talked about, the control, the hardware, and connect, we can build a cloud, public or private, in many different ways with that single platform. So on the left here, you see, this is actually the example of a government agency. Up here, you see how a typical network would be built out. Well, multiple tiers, super expensive boxes, lots and lots of interconnects. We literally build it. It looks physically like a ring. You just close the loop on it. But it's all one tier. And this environment is actually, with 34 switches, we're supporting 40,000 VDI sessions. And we're doing it all dynamically in real time. During the day, it's VDI. At night, the fabric reallocates the capacity to support analytics and backup traffic. Again, that's completely unique. There's nobody else that's able to do that. In the middle, we use these same exact pieces, the building blocks, the tools to build these clouds. Right? This was a customer that got genomics research grant money, and they had to determine whether they were going to build a new centralized data center, right, and consolidate that data for analytics purposes, or if they were going to be able to leverage the distributed capacity of compute that was throughout campus. Well, with Plexxi, right, this distributed cloud environment, the optical interconnect, they were able to leverage the capacity that's built all across the network, right, without having to incur that massive cost. But all of that analytics is being done as a single instance, right, in a distributed environment. Save them a ton of money. That would be a distributed private cloud, right? They own it. It's in their facility. It's one mobility domain for the applications, even though it's spread out across a big geographic area. And the third one is a customer that we announced today. It's Perseus. They're based in Manhattan. They're an international service provider. They're leveraging in this very same box, essentially, that you can see in the back of this room, right? Data center interconnect across continents. And so same software, same hardware, same control and connectivity is giving them the ability to distribute a network globally. And again, create a single mobility domain for the applications. A traditional network can't do that. So really interesting. So if we go to the next slide, we really want to talk about, so we talk about that integration, how do we do that? So these are screenshots. It's kind of because it's storage, compute, and network, it's hard to reel this in. But essentially, if you look at the screenshots down below, up here you have vCenter. So everything that vCenter knows about the workloads is fed dynamically into the fabric of the network. So you can see that the switches know ESX servers that are connected to them, all the VMs that are associated with it, and through integration are aware of the needs of those VM instances. So dynamically configure the network to support the needs. Virtual storage, vMotion, all of these things happen dynamically. Again, it's a very unique and different environment. And if you look at one last slide, so we talk about creating a fabric, a meshed fabric with optics. This visualizes, this is the example of the 34, right, 40,000 VDI sessions. All of those are active links in the bottom, and the software knows how to distribute that traffic more effectively and efficiently. No other vendor in the space can do that. Love to have the time to chat with you afterwards if you'd like. Again, you've got the switch, we can talk about it. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, yeah, sorry, questions? I gave myself the hook. Any questions? Yes?
What's the technology that allows you to do it differently than Cisco?
So the question was, what's the technology that allows us to do it differently than Cisco? So Cisco does not have the optical capability in the rear side of the box. So they use all Ethernet. They use the traditional, networking. Let me answer it this way. If you think of how rapidly storage and compute technologies have changed over the last 5 years, right? But you look at the network, the way the networks are designed by Cisco, Juniper, Arista, any of them, it's 30-year-old, right? It's the same multiple, the pipes have gotten bigger. You've gone from 1 gig to 10 gig to 40 gig to 100 gig, but how the traffic is allocated and forwarded through that hasn't changed. So Cisco has some awareness from the application with application-centric infrastructure, ACI, but they haven't changed the way the network's been built. So it's that optical capability of building a single tier mesh that makes it different. The software integration, again, to leverage that optical environment is the key area where I point to that says we're taking a very different approach. Okay.
What about the security? I mean, of security of data?
It's a great question. So, one of the interesting things is if you look back here, you look at all of the paths that are available for traffic to be forwarded, we have the ability to isolate traffic on a unique path. So think of it as service chain, right? We can understand through integration if IDS or IPS, antivirus, something identifies risk traffic, high risk traffic. We have the ability in real time to reallocate where that traffic is on the network, isolate it, service chain it for defense in depth type approach. So that dynamic nature of the fabric is actually very well suited to a security type environment where we want to, if there's something that I'm worried about, I want to actually isolate it in real time to dedicated paths that nothing else is going over. Any other questions?
Why did you choose New Hampshire?
Why did we choose New Hampshire? So there's a couple of answers to that. Our founder, Dave Huzak, is an MIT grad who's from New Hampshire. So early on, we had some offices here in Cambridge. As the company grew, we won a contest that was based by the Flatley Group. So we got very similar to earlier where you offer space for startups. We were able to move to Nashua to do that. But we stayed in Nashua as we've grown, and we've continued to stay there for a bunch of reasons, right? It's a reverse commute from a big talent pool here in this area. So that's really attractive. We've got a lot of folks that come from here and reverse commute it, and it's really not that far away. So New Hampshire has been a really great place for a big part of it's the talent acquisition. Yeah. Yes?
How many customers do you have?
So the question is, how many customers do we have? So we have a growing number of customers. We don't actually disclose the number, but this is our first year of commercialization. So we spent 4 years essentially in R&D. In this last year, we've grown, so we came to market basically in December of last year, fall of last year. We've had 10x growth of revenue across that time, and we're looking for 3 times that next year. So we're on a very rapid growth rate. Yes?
How are you funded? How is the company funded?
So the question is, how are we funded? So we actually just got a D round of funding about a month ago. We got a $35 million round of funding. It's venture capital. That brings us, I believe, to $85 million so far. So we're probably another round or two. If you look at what Arista did, I think they were about 125 before they went public. We're really pretty much on that same track, same ramp of where we expect from a funding perspective to be able to launch. Yes?
Someone mentioned Cisco. I was just wondering who else do you see as your direct competitor?
Yeah, so the question was, so I mentioned Cisco, who else do we see? So we definitely see the traditional networking players, right? Arista, Juniper, Brocade, Extreme, HP, that long list. But there's also a growing trend of sort of the industry's talked as being SDN, right? Software-defined networking players, some white box type players, some companies that disaggregate the operating system from the hardware like Cumulus or Big Switch, Pluribus. So those are, it's a pretty broad group. We're very unique in that we are taking a new approach with software. So in many cases, the analyst community, the journalist community kind of calls us a software-defined networking company. We don't call ourselves that. We define the way the network behaves through software, but we do it in a very unique way that's a closed system that solves a very specific, unique challenge. The white box manufacturers take that 30-year-old architecture of how you build the network, and they say, hey, let's do it with a white box, which just means it's not vendor marketed, right? So it costs less. So they're very much in the market saying, spend less money on switchboards, but build it the way you've always built it. From our perspective, we think that in a highly virtualized, highly dynamic cloud environment, that multiple tier network is not well optimized to handle the traffic that flows east-west in a virtualized data center. So that single tier approach is really, yeah, there's a CapEx conversation there. I'm buying less ports, fewer switches, and it saves me money. But it's also optimized for the way the traffics flow in a cloud environment today, right? You separate your virtual machines, they move throughout your environment and they talk to each other. Whether that's storage for snapshot, backup traffic. There's a lot of traffic that goes east-west. The single tier network optimizes how you forward that traffic through. So I could very easily say we're very different from the white box manufacturers. You might want to have a conversation about the cost of a port, but I can give you a much bigger, more interesting conversation about integrating the workflow so the application gets what it needs in a dynamic way, right? Reducing your operational overhead, reducing the configuration needs, being able to scale out horizontally with no configuration at all. That's a very unique approach. So the traditional networking vendors can't do that, and even the new white box type vendors can't do that either. So we see ourselves in a very unique position.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.